Today is November 2nd, 2022. Welcome to the Survivor Fans Podcast. I'm Stacy, and I'm going to be your solo host this week. Joanne's not doing too well. She's got an ear infection, so she's resting. She did watch the episode, and we did get to talk about it, but doing the podcast is a little too much to ask at this point, so we need her focused on getting well. So this is week 7 of season 43. This episode's titled Bull in a China Shop. That was spoken by Owen in reference to the Gabler. Okay, we're told that the merged tribe's name is Gaia. I'm going to go with that. I looked it up. That was one of the pronunciations, Gaia. And we're back at the Gaia tribe, night 13, after that tribal council where Ellie was voted out. And Jeanine is reeling. She's been blindsided, she tells us. And it starts off with a confessional with her. And she's giving us the OMG play-by-play of what she's feeling at this point. Because she absolutely did not see that coming. And her game, as far as she can tell, just went down the tubes. We see her talking with Noelle. And Noelle tells her, I was in your position. This is going to help you in the long run. You just need to act as if it's all okay. And then we see her talking to a sequence of people. So Jeanine talking to Cassidy, and Cassidy tells her, well, it's a blessing in disguise. And then she's talking to Jesse and Dwight, and they're telling her, yeah, it's going to work out. And James tells her, well, the next vote is crucial, and I don't see you as a target. And her response to James at this point, I thought was perfect, that she said, let me be an asset. So she's not doing the woe is me there, and it looks like she really took Noelle's advice to heart. So she's doing damage control, talking to folks, and she's got her mind focused on the game. She's not circling the bowl at all. Okay, day 14. This is really a one-day episode, with the exception of that little after-tribal moment. We see Owen and Dwight scheming. They're standing around in the crowd. Everybody's out on the beach. They're doing different things, different groups talking about different topics, but they are talking strategy. And Owen is all about keeping the 5 alive, and this is when we get the title. He tells us Gabler is a bull in the China shop. And so he really wrecked the 5. Maybe they can hold on to the 4, but there's a clear crack in the Baca alliance, and he's just not sure that it's going to hold at all. And then we cut to Gabler, and he's giving a deep sigh, and he tells us this feels good. He woke up feeling good. The Gabler took Ellie out, and now he's ready to sink back down to the bottom of the swamp. He's going to chill until it's time to attack again. And we get tree mail, and we've seen a few tree mails. Sometimes they're in the extra videos, but sometimes we see them in the episodes. This is one of those times it looked like they got the materials to paint the merge flag, but they also got the tree mail, and that's when they learned for the next challenge 6 pairs are going to compete. So, and it's up to them to choose who are the pairs. So they basically follow the recipe they've been given. They go in and they paint 2 rocks the same color, and then everybody draws out of those 6 pairs of the same colored rocks, and that's how they come up with the pairs. Because everyone was feeling pretty awkward and had no idea, and everyone wasn't rushing to be the first to partner with Ryan. So that helped take some of the pressure off, I guess. But Sami's concerned. He's like, well, what are we competing for? What is this? Is this the best pair for that? How is this going to affect me? And Jeanine tells us that she was having middle school flashbacks at this point. Okay, so they draw rocks, and then we cut to commercial, and we come back. They're coming in at the immunity challenge. And we got all our pairs, Owen and Gabler, and Cody and Dwight, Noelle and Sami, Ryan and James, Cassidy, Karla, Jesse and Jeanine. So we learned this this is a multi-stage challenge. First, they're going to have to crawl through a net. But there's a catch. The net is twisted in the middle. So you have to untwist it as you're going through it. And, oh, yeah, the net, the middle of the path that you got to crawl through, the twisted part of the net, is just a big mud puddle. So you're going to get covered with muck as you work your way through that net to get out. And then after you get through the net, when both people get through the net, they have to dig up their planks. So they're big sand pits, 3 different sand pits, and then there's a set of 3 planks in a bag that's tied with a series of knots to keep it closed. So you got to find your planks and get back to the mat. And the first 4 pairs are going to go forward from this stage. So we see Jeanine is the last one in, and she's having a lot of trouble, and Noelle's having a lot of trouble, and they both end up getting caught in that twisted net. And I can't remember a time when we've seen someone who got caught in a position of the challenge, a portion of the challenge, and couldn't proceed. I guess we've seen people get stuck and not be able to work their way through it, like they couldn't. Yeah, I guess we've seen it just in a different fashion, right? Well, like when they're tied to a rope and somebody can't work out how to maneuver through the ropes, through the, an up and over and under set of obstacles where the rope wraps around a bunch of times. So I guess it was somewhat similar to that, but these two were actually stuck. It didn't look like they were going to go forward or backward. So when we got our first 4 pairs, they got through. Everybody had to go back and then help them out, and then we had a moment where it affected Noelle. It also affected Jeanine, and they were concerned because their lack of progress affected their partners in the challenges. So Jesse and Sami in this case, and Jeff. See, this is one of those things where he forces the emotional moment. First, he told them to go help. And then he says, wow, look at you guys jumping in to help each other. And anyway, so it was just another one of those Probst moments where it seemed really awkward to me. I guess it was somewhat touching. It was certainly emotional for Noelle, and we're shown, somewhat similar, but it was different for Noelle. She ended up even detaching her artificial leg, trying to get herself through, but wasn't able to do that. And anyway, after Probst had his "I love the love" moment, we're moving on to the next stage. In this stage, they've got to get each of the 4 pairs have got to get themselves and their planks up a net wall, and then once they're up top, they've got to take the 3 planks out of the bag where they're tied up and then navigate across a rope bridge with the 3 planks. And they've got to get themselves and the 3 planks over to the other side, and only 2 pairs will get to proceed to the next stage of the challenge. So our 4 pairs are James and Ryan, Owen and Gabler, Cassidy and Karla, and Cody and Dwight. And Cody and Dwight just really tore through that. They mastered that ability to do the rope bridge and to keep each other on the 3 planks as they cross, and then to retrieve them. They just did that super fast. And then it was, who's going to be the next pair that goes forward. And it looked like it was going to be Cassidy and Karla. Cassidy did really good getting through, and then right at the end, Karla made a mistake and ended up falling. So that took them out of the running. And it looked like James and Ryan had it too. And James jumped ahead and left Ryan hanging, and he didn't have a way to get himself and all 3 planks forward. And he definitely had some words for James after that happened, but they had a plank drop. So they were essentially out of it. And then Owen and Gabler came through. I think there's some records that are, a big record broken in this challenge, but I want to give Owen the biggest skid mark award. I don't think we've ever seen someone leave a skid mark like he did coming down that slide to finish this stage of the challenge there. That was a monumental skid mark. All mud, but it definitely stood out. We even got a barrel roll there at the end from Gabler as he got on the mat to secure that second spot. Okay, in this last stage, there's a bucket suspended, and it's got 25% of each person's body weight prior to the game beginning, 25% at that level. And this is one of those where they've got to hold a bar, basically, and the rope is wound around that, and it goes up to a pulley, and then the bucket with that weight is suspended from that rope at that height. And they pull the bar back towards themselves, and that disengages the hold, and then it's up to them. So it's really about hand strength and some arm strength there. Who has the stamina and the willpower to go after this? Turns out Dwight didn't have a lot of that. He was first out. He went out relatively early. And then Gabler started with his dedications. He had a dedication for, and he was doing these minute-by-minute dedications. So he had a dedication to his Uncle Neil, who had just had heart surgery. And that was basically his inspiration. And Owen said his inspiration when Probst asked him was he had been dreaming since he was a little kid to have that individual immunity necklace, so to win one of those. And Cody tells us that he's here to redeem a high school wrestling loss that kept him from going to the state finals. So the next minute, Gabler dedicated to Noelle, saying that she inspires him. And that was at 23 minutes, and Probst tells us the record is 25. Gabler slips, but he was able to reel his bucket back up. And Owen slips and dug in to recover, and then he was out. So he ended up dropping at that point. And we're back to breaking tiles. So that's the other thing. When the bucket drops, it does break a tile. One of the classic moments in Survivor challenges. So it's Gabler head-to-head versus Cody, and they're coming up on the 25-minute record. And Gabler tells us that he's dedicating the next minute to one of his patients, and it was a real touching story about the history of that patient, and then ended up being someone that he worked on, and then he said he got to know. Had 6 great years learning more about Lester Tenney. And they break it. Now, how amazing is it to participate in a Survivor challenge and then set a record? So at this point, they're way ahead of the game, and you've got a keepsake in Survivor history at this point. And Gabler had other dedications. He dedicated one to his dog, and then he dedicated 1 minute to Idaho and another minute to Alaska, and then somebody named Muzzy, who was a roommate or a fairy in the Louisiana swamps, a mystical person. I'm not quite sure what that one was all about. And Probst noticed that there was the buckets had slipped for both Cody and Gabler, so they both start their wind-ups to get the bucket back up. Gabler gets his no problem, but Cody's actually struggling. And as they cross the 38-minute mark, Cody ends up letting go. And Gabler won individual immunity. Did not see that coming at all. Would never have guessed that was going to be him. So good on him, and for setting a record that probably will stand for quite a while. That is a grueling challenge. It just burns your arms up and your hands. You might be cramping for days afterwards from that one. So Probst tells us Gabler is going to be safe at Tribal Council tonight. And then Gabler, in his confessional, as we're headed to the commercial, tells us that he did not know he could do that, but he's thrilled that he could. And you're not going to know that until you put yourself out there and try. And then we get, at this point in, it's at least the last 3 episodes, it cuts to Probst telling people to, send in your casting audition. So those two went back to back pretty well, what Gabler said, and then Probst. And Probst was even a little sassy this time. He's like, I don't have to say it. You know what you need to do. Submit your application. Okay, we're back at Camp Gaia on day 14 after the immunity challenge. And Gabler tells us that was really therapy for him. And it helped him learn something about himself. And he was dedicating his experience out there to people in the military. He's from a military family, and he was highlighting a lot of the challenges that the veterans are facing. So that was a good moment there. We see a quick strategic moment between Karla and Sami. And Karla's telling Sami, look, I got your back. If your name comes up, I'll let you know. And Sami tells us, well, it's really going to get interesting now. This is really when it kicks into gear. And we see lots of folks going out to wash off all that mud. There's a moment, I'm sure it was this way for everyone. A lot of people were covered in mud. Certainly Owen's back end was. And but for whatever reason, the person that was featured with the biggest mud cloud around him was Noelle. And they showed her a couple of times. It was like a real Charlie Brown pigpen moment for her. She had got it so caked on. Anyway, that was funny. So they're all talking, trying to figure out how they're going to make the decision for who to vote for, and nothing's been decided yet. Cut to the well. And we've got James and Sami and Owen and Dwight have gone to the well to get some water. And when James looks in, lo and behold, there's a bottle there in the well, and he retrieves it. And yes, as we guessed, it is the return of the knowledge is power advantage. Well, actually, we find out what it actually is a little later. What they learn is that there's an advantage under their shelter and for someone to take. And James even offers it to the others. And Sami's like, no way, I don't want anything to do with that, man. And so it seems like it's viewed as a burden that no one wants. So James ends up holding it, and he tells them and us that, well, he'll get it after tribal council tonight. And then after they go their separate ways, he turns back to the camera and says, yeah, well, I'm just going to go get it. And he does. Goes into the shelter, moves a few boards around, and voila, he's got the knowledge is power advantage. So this is when we see that moment where Dwight is telling other folks about James has a clue for an advantage that's under the shelter, and he tells Noelle. And then we see Noelle telling Gabler and Jeanine, and it's like a bit of the telephone game as they're going around saying, this is what James has. And Noelle tells Jesse, and they're thinking they're going to focus on voting out James. And then Jesse and Karla talk. And Jesse tells us that he trusts Karla more than the folks in his own tribe in Old Vesey. And he's thinking now might be the time to get Noelle out. And Jesse ends up sharing this with Cody, that this might be the time to move on Noelle. And Cody's got a slightly different idea. He's thinking Dwight. He just has never had a good feeling, he tells Cody, or Cody tells Jesse about Dwight. And if we take Dwight out, well, that can also weaken Noelle. So Cody's not quite ready to do that. And I really liked what Jesse said at this point. He said it's important to give Cody agency. So for him to have a sense of, I'm calling this shot, and this is the direction that we're going to go. This is who we're going to vote for. So he could have argued for Noelle. Now's the time. He could have pushed Cody in that direction, but he recognized that it was important for Cody to feel like he was making that call, and that Jesse was going, okay, yeah, I can go with that. We're an alliance, and that helped solidify the trust. And this is classic. I thought this was for sure what was going to get James voted out. Now, mind you, I thought Dwight was the one that ended up with the knowledge is power advantage based on the next time on Survivor Clues and the promo ad. I was just sure it was Dwight, but it turns out it was James. Who do we see James telling first? He tells Karla, I have the knowledge is power. How did that work out for Geo? She got him booted out of the game. So I thought, wow, this is going to happen again. And then we also see James telling Ryan that he has it, and he tells Cody. And interestingly, and of course Cody's going, oh my goodness, this. So he's got this thing where he can take my immunity bracelet, and he tells us that James knows that he has one. So Cody and Jesse hatch a plan, and Cody ends up giving his immunity bracelet to Jesse to protect it. And then we see Dwight and Sami and Jeanine talking, and Jeanine gives her immunity bracelet to Dwight. And then Noelle ends up giving her steal a vote to Owen so he can protect it. So James can't take any of those. So it's a big game of musical advantages going on. And Vesey, cut back to Jesse, rather. He's wondering, is this going to be Vesey no more? Are we going to take Dwight out? Are we going to take James out? What's the right time on this? So that's what we get as we head into Tribal Council. So Tribal Council, night 14, Probst is all about, you had to earn each step today. And so he wants people to talk about the metaphor that they've created through the challenge and how it represents the game. So he hits up Karla, and she does a good job of saying, stage is just like the game, and then holding on for dear life at the end. Jesse, when he's asked about how he's looking at the game at this point, he's ready to roll with his Colosseum metaphor. So it was gladiator school before the merge. Now they're fighting in the Colosseum. It's the big time. And Dwight tells us when he's asked if Baca and Vesey are still working together against Coco, oh no, this is all individual. We've all got the same buff on, but we're all playing an individual game now. And when Noelle's asked about the impact of advantages, is she worrying about them? She says, yeah, we're always thinking about that. And then how to counter it with plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D. So, which is the right answer and the right strategy. James tells us that at this point in the game, you got to weigh those relationships. And you got to know when to use the advantages. And you can't drive yourself crazy. You can think endlessly. I guess he was offering some thoughts on Noelle's answer. He said that you don't want to drive yourself crazy. You need to pick a plan and stick to the plan. It's a little Keith nail there from James. And Cody's asked to come up with a surfing analogy. He said this is when you either jump in to ride the waves or you hang out and drink the beers on the beach. And Probst, out of the blue, has to go back. He said, well, it's Jaws, isn't it? Because he wants the monster to still be there. He hasn't completely given up on this idea of the monster. And he even does a bad ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Does a bad Jaws rhythm there. There's a shark waiting to get you here in the game. And then he polls everyone, asking them how comfortable they are. Jesse makes sure he's clear on what the scale is this time and cracks Probst up a little bit. So Jesse says he's a 9 out of 10. Karla's a 9. Ryan says he's somewhere 7 to 8. Cody's an 8. James is 8.5. Dwight's an 8. Noelle's an 8. And Sami says, well, I'm going to play it real. I'm going to lay it out for you. This is all about going with your gut. That's the only thing that you can do here if you're going to play the game and not have regrets. Cut to James. He's moving. He's shuffling around in his seat down there, and that gets some heads turning, but there's no real action there. But it certainly caught people's attention. Time to vote. And Probst is coming back with the votes, and James is covering up his eyes with his buff. He's burying his head in the sand. And Probst asks, any advantages, any idols to be played? None. All right, so there's actually no advantage, no idol action in this tribal council. The votes come in, 1 for James, 1 for Dwight, 1 for Ryan, 2 for James, 2 for Dwight, 2 for Ryan, 3 for Ryan, 3 for Dwight, 4 for Dwight, 5, 6, and Dwight is out. And James is gloating. Big smile and a little bit of a celebration from him. And Dwight is out, and he is not jury. So he even mentions that in his last words. He tells Probst that this was a journey of a lifetime, and Dwight seemed to manage getting voted out really well. But he said he feels like he missed the jury by a day, and so that was bumming him out a little bit. And we also see Jeanine turn to Noelle and ask, what just happened? And Noelle says, no idea. So I thought this was another really solid episode. I enjoyed it immensely. I liked the changes and the challenge, the pairs, the stages. We've seen them do challenges and stages before, but that twisted net through the mud and the muck and the difficulty that caused, and the classic rope bridge, the balance challenge that presents, and then an endurance challenge at the end. So and only a few move forward at each stage. So there was a lot of action, a lot to it, and it was definitely an exciting challenge. And I enjoyed seeing the scramble, the impact that the advantage had on how the advantage that they found back at camp under the shelter, the impact that had on how the voting decisions were being made, and then the shifting alliances. So, we see Cody and Jesse have basically turned their backs on original Vesey at this point. Noelle's clueless and completely lost as to what happened there. So on the votes, James got 2 votes, one from Noelle and one from Dwight. And then Ryan got 3 votes, one from Gabler, one from Owen, and one from Jeanine. And then Dwight got the votes from the controlling alliance, which was Cassidy, Jesse, Cody, Karla, Sami, James, and Ryan. So it's a Coco contingent along with a couple of the Vessies, and they would appear to be in control with the majority there. Although next time on Survivor is giving us some different options from that perspective, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, the way it played out was exciting. I like the challenges. Could have done without the forced moments from Probst, but he can't help himself, and it didn't get in the way a whole lot. Now the whole monster thing's just a running joke. So I guess this kind of felt right to me in terms of a time for Dwight to go. In terms of what we had been provided and his impact on the game. Oh, I need to go back and mention a moment at Tribal Council. Jeanine was trying to get Dwight's attention to get her immunity bracelet back, because remember, Dwight was holding that at that point. And several times we see her put her hand back to get that. And Dwight even says at one point when the votes are coming in, I see you. But we never see him give that back to her. So we're left with a little bit of a mystery. Did he leave holding Jeanine's bracelet, or did he give it back to her? I expect that'll all come clear in the next episode, but what a bad moment that would be for Jeanine, that she had given it up to protect it. He's holding it, gets voted out, and now she doesn't have it anymore. That would just be insult to injury in these last 2 tribal councils for her. So I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. Okay, next time on Survivor, we see James say, "We've got 7. That can take us far." And he's talking to Karla and Jesse there. And sure enough, with the people who voted together, there's reason to believe they would stay together going forward. But we see Jeanine and Sami and Owen talking, and Sami saying, well, that's just not the way the game should go, which everyone feels when it's not going in a positive direction for them. And Owen is all about starting an uprising. And we see Jesse saying, this could be the 7. And we could skip to the loo to the end with this. We see Jeanine talking to Cassidy and saying we could do some damage. And then we hear Cassidy say, sometimes you have to rock the boat. Now, Cassidy's in that alliance of 7 that just took Dwight out. Cassidy, Karla, James, Ryan, Jesse, Cody, and Sami. So, this could be an alternate alliance. They could end up in control. She could, swing back and forth. I guess that's all possible. But she's probably pretty comfortable in that 7 that she's in already. So I'm not sure about that. And we get Cody making some random statement about people running around like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean other than him name dropping a movie star. So, and we see Noelle talking to Sami and saying, I'm with you. And Sami, the next time on Survivor ends with Sami telling us, I got to set myself up to win. Well, that would be the general idea, Sami. So good on you there. Let's see you make that happen. Sure, it's possible. There's a long way to go here. But this was definitely an exciting sequence of events. Let's do a JSFL update. So Rajmi is holding on steadfast to first with 32 points. We got 9 people lost their USB. So, and that's always a rough one when maybe you just switched to Dwight and then they get voted out right afterwards. I laugh, but that's happened to me before. 94 people lost a safe point, and 17 earned a vote-off point. I would be among that group of 17. In the side challenge update, Jeremiah is still in first with 31. We've got Parker in a clear solo second with 29. With 28, we've got Justin, Rebecca, Robert, and me. And then with 27, we've got Chris, and with 25, Cole Mike. All right. And let's before we leave the JSFL update, let's take a quick look at the USB choices. Remember, this was the week where you could make a change to your USB. So here's how it stands. The number one choice after this week is Jesse, and he's got 68 people chose him to win now. Previously, there were 47 that had Jesse. And then in second, Owen with 33. Previously, he had 57, so he took a big drop. Jesse had a big increase. Owen dropped quite a bit. Cody is at 31, so he picked up some. He was previously at 20. Karla is at 30. That's who I switched mine to, was Karla. And she was previously 7, so she had a huge increase too. 23 she added in there. James was at 18, is now at 18, and previously was at 16, so a couple of folks there added into James' tally. Sami, 17 people have Sami to win now. Previously that was 5. Jeanine is next in line with 12. She previously had 14. Dwight had 10. He had picked up a couple, actually. So, yeah, there's definitely going to be some people disappointed there. And he was at 8 previously. Noelle is 9. She had 8 people thinking she might win before. Ryan's at 8. He previously had 9, so he lost 1. At least still got 6, but she's out. Gabler's got 5, and he previously had 5. So how about that? I bet those are the same 5. I doubt it was shuffling. And they were pretty happy with themselves watching Gabler's performance and winning the first individual immunity this episode. Cassidy held firm at 4, and Justine still had 4. Lindsay still had 4. NECA had 1. Lindsay had 1. NECA had 1, and Geo still had 1. So some people forgot to change their USB picks there for the ones that were voted out. All right, well, there's our JSFL update. I'm excited for the listener feedback show now that we've got the recap taken care of, all the big strokes for what happened in the episode. I'm looking forward to hearing what you saw and observed from your particular walk in life. You might be able to see certain things that the rest of us can't pick up on. And so we look forward to hearing your insights and your predictions. Do you think Jeanine lost her immunity bracelet? Did Dwight leave holding it? Are we going to find out that he did indeed return it? And is the 7 that voted Dwight out, are they going to hold firm going forward, or is it going to get mixed up? Looking forward to who you think's playing their best and who's in danger of being voted out next. The voicemail line, 206-350-1547, toll-free 844-643-8737. You can write up an email and send it, and we'll read it into the show, or record your audio yourself. That's generally how you get the best quality. Sometimes, especially when you call from your cell phone, it's super convenient. We love having that voicemail line to make it possible for people to get their feedback in, but sometimes things glitch a little bit or go wrong, and it isn't the best audio quality, and you can control that. Record your own and send it in, attach it to an email to Joanne and Stacy's show at gmail.com. Whether you're writing it up or you're calling, leaving a voicemail, or recording it yourself, we ask that you get it in that 3-minute range. It's tempting to go longer. It's easy to go longer. Joanne and I often go longer and talking about what your thoughts were that you shared when you send them in. But we try to limit it to 3 minutes so that the show will be manageable and so that we can get everybody in. So we appreciate that. Feedback is due noon Pacific time on Saturday. Oh, yeah, one other thing. One other question I'm curious. James, he sounds like he's talking into a fan, right? How do you make that sound when you're just talking? I wonder if there's something going on with his voice. He may have some issue there. That's not normal to sound like you're talking into a fan like that. Some other folks had mentioned that in previous weeks, but boy, it was really on display with us getting to hear a lot more from him this week. Look forward to hearing from you. Have a good one.